Hey folks, I'm Michael Hobbs. I'm an instructor of exercise science here at GCSU, and I've been asked to share with you a little bit about my GC1Y class, and I'm really excited to do so. It's been a work in progress, and it's still a work in progress. It's been really, really fun. It's probably become my favorite class and my favorite class to work on because the thing I've learned about it is there's no real boundaries for it, right? I don't have to finish this unit so that the next unit or the next class can be taken. So it's really, really fun. I don't want to ramble on too much about that. I want to tell you a little about the class and how I came up with it. I'd finished a book by John Mattei, and I have it here. I just want to show you real quick. It's called Go Wild, right? I just want to shout out, right? Go Wild. And it was the second book I'd read by the author. I'd read another one called Spark. So our students at GCSU, all my biochem classes, they all read Spark, and my GC1Ys read this. So we're big fans of Dr. Mattei. And it was a book that I felt like it was really profound, and it showed us kind of what it was to be human and Homo sapiens, and maybe, and so it was several chapters on these things. And I thought to myself, like, I think this is a book written in such a manner, is very informative, but I think the lay person could grab onto it, and it would give them a lot of tools to deal with things like the craziness of everyday life and the stresses and the anxieties or depression or ADHD and all these various things, and especially young people when they don't have all those tools and they just get to college and things can be overwhelming, including freedom, right? The freedom itself can be overwhelming. And so I thought, well, if I would have had this, maybe I would have been in better shape. Maybe not great, but I would have been in better shape in that. And so that's kind of what I did. And I talked to my one of my teaching mentors here, Dr. Lisa Griffin, and I asked her, she's my chair, and I asked her, hey, is there an opportunity to do this class? And she's like, well, another person had the GC1Y last semester, see if they still want to do it. And if they don't, then, you do have 3 hours that are open for you. And so I did, and he was like, please do it. He did not enjoy it that much, apparently, and I did it. And yeah, from then it's been relatively successful, I would say, but the reviews have been pretty good. And I mean, I remember after the second semester, my chair came in and she said, what book do you have them read? And I was like, oh, well, they love it. I was like, yeah, I knew they would. And I was like, that's why I was like, the class is really based around the book, right? Like when Dr. Mattei wrote the book, he built the class for me. I just spun some things off of all the work he did. He made it exceptionally easy. And it just contains things, the first part's basically about, human 1.0, what kind of makes, we're still the same Homo sapiens that we were, time and decades and in centuries and, years and thousands and millions really, as it were, ago, right? But we're the same Homo sapiens we've always been, even though technology has made us different and urbanization and all these different things have changed the way we live. We're the same entities, as it were. And so, what fuels us and our need to move and our need and the fact that we're empathetic with one another, it defines us as being humans. And so we have to remember those things still. And then he talks about, all the afflictions that we see, and he goes into a long talks about how to eat so there's a chapter on food, and there's a chapter on to move and how important it is for the brain, and there's a chapter on sleep, and then there's another chapter on awareness and mindfulness, so like being in the moment and thinking about things like that. And there's a chapter on biophilia, which is the love of nature, the love of outdoors, right, and things like that. And then there's another chapter on being tribe and being social. And I always tell my kids, like, good social, not Vegas social, but really social, and having a tribe and a group that you can depend and rely upon and that are supportive of you and give you boundaries where you need your boundaries. And then they talk, last one, kind of about with the vagus nerve and how that works and how there's this feedback, afferent, efferent kind of feedback, and how that affects everything into the gut, and the enteric nervous system, how you kind of have a second brain. And then the authors kind of wrap it up and tell their story is how, as they were doing their research and learning all these things, they changed too, because they learned all these things. So it shows the kids, it gives them all these references to tools that they can then use and take with them. And something I do off that is I have these worksheets, and I'll kind of, right, and I give them a series of questions. I put them in groups, right, and they have to answer questions. And so I give them questions like, All right. You oversee a group of students who desire to change meal plan requirements, meal plan costs, food availability, and variety. What would be your first change you would propose to President Dorman, and how would you justify it? What would your penultimate change in your justification be? Remember things like cost, desires of the client, area required, any other variables which may occur with changes. So we did that with food. We did other ones with sleep, like your roommate suffers from insomnia. How could you help them? Or looking at changing the schedule. So I give them a series of problems. I put them in groups, right? In like 6 groups. And so there's 6 problems usually. And then each group, the first 5 groups solve the problem, and the 6th group then takes those problems and looks through the problems and picks the best problem. And then they have to tell me picks the best solution to that problem, And then they have to then decide why that's the best solution to that problem. Now, first in the semester, I take it relatively easy on them, and some of their solutions are a bit like pie in the sky, and I get it. Like I probably would have done the same thing, but as the semester's gone on, I try to poke more holes in some of the solutions and make them see that maybe they should take more charge. Sometimes a lot of it is just simply just raise taxes or tell the government this, and sometimes I try to see like, hey, maybe what can you do, or what can you as a group of citizens do, or things like that, so they feel like they have a little more control and they're not waiting on someone else to do something for them. But I try to challenge them a little bit more each week and make them some of their ideas more concretized or feasible, or show them holes, show them where their solutions might create more problems in the future, right? Because one thing I have them try to learn from that is all your solutions will then create a problem later on, right? And so that's something that they kind of know. So the book is really, really good. Go Wild. And so the other things that we like to do in the class, so I have them do something called Schwams. What I was finding is we'd have about an hour of material, and I didn't like to run them too long, and we had these 15 minutes, and I thought how to best use it. And so what I found was a series of topics. There was something called Academy of Ideas that offers these 5 to 7 minute videos, right, on various things like can you vote your way to freedom, and examining political authority. Is it right? How much is okay and how much is not? Looking at what is tyranny actually. How would you dethrone a tyrant? Let's see, striving for a meaningful life versus a happy one. Looking at Aldous Huxley's work, Brave New World, and how does that parallel to today? Looking at George Orwell's work, 1984, how does that parallel to today? Obedience versus disobedience, how does that work? Looking at examining public schools and mainstream medians, are they dumbing you down, right? And so they look at this video, and then what they have to do is write about a 250-minute snippet on that, reflecting on it. Do they agree? Why don't they agree? Those kind of things like that. Another thing we do is I make them watch a couple of debates, monk debates, which are really fascinating. One on political correctness, has it gone too far, or is it not far enough? Another one on, has mankind seen its best days, or are best days to come, right? And so you get these experts in a true debate environment where, let's say there's a minimalization of sophism, right, as it were, though still always the ad hominem, but real experts that debate back and forth on this. And then I break it up into 20 or 30 minute segments for them, and they have to reflect on those 20 or 30 minute segments, talk about has their opinion changed, and reflect on that. So we have them do that. Towards the end of the year, then we go into something called logical fallacies and cognitive biases section, where I show them how people can kind of argue or manipulate these things, the sophism a bit, and show them in arguments what to look for. There's some clearerthinking.org does some really good work on that, and I bring in some things that I've used. I had them do some personality tests, like a Big 5 personality test, and then we reflect on that, right? We talk about each other, how we might see the world a little bit differently, knowing this about each other. So I think that's really powerful. So they have a good idea of who they are and why they are who they are, maybe based on their personality, and why someone might think something differently than based on their personality, and see things differently based on their personality traits. We do a little bit of work on something called Open Mind Platform, which I think is fascinating. So my first semester really getting to do it. I started last semester, but with COVID, I didn't get to finish with it. But what they do is they learn how to have difficult conversations, or let's say start to learn how to have difficult conversations with people who might disagree with them on something, but still have a conversation and not see that person as an antagonist or oppositional, but someone to learn from and someone to have a conversation with, which is something I think very important, especially in the learning environment, because it's really important, I think, that students are exposed to people with opposite ideas, opposite theirs or opposed to theirs, diametrically opposed even. And so I think it's because when they get in the world, right, one of the things they're going to see is you're going to have to deal with people that are both, liberal or conservative, right? It doesn't really matter. And so it's really important that you can deal with those and have conversations with those people. No, they're not your enemy or anything like that, but have a conversation. Then we finish up with some things, minor psychology and a little bit of philosophical thoughts and stuff like that. A lot of reflections on those things. We have a lot of group work. We do a lot of talking. And so I think it's a really fun class, and I've run over my limit. So I am going to stop now. I could talk for a long time on my class. It's ever evolving. And if you have more questions or things you want to ask me or talk about, please contact me. And I'm ending it now.